Before I start, consider this a public service announcement. If you have children with you right now and you don't want them to hear things about that seventh commandment, then I suggest you just turn this off and come back to it when you're on your own. Get the picture? Okay, let's go. An adulterous heart is a restless heart. Frank Sinatra was well known, not only for his distinctive crooning voice, but also for his extensive list of affairs with women. The singer married his first wife Nancy in 1939, but during their marriage he had a highly publicised affair with Ava Gardner. He eventually left Nancy for Ava, whom he married in 1951. Now, unfortunately, Frank was also unfaithful to Ava with the actress Lauren Bacall, among others, whilst they were married, and they divorced in 1957. Frank and Lauren became engaged, and Frank reportedly broke off that engagement. He was married 4 times, and a quick internet search brings up the names of at least 25 women, well-known women, with whom Frank had affairs, including Judy Garland, Marilyn Monroe, and Mia Farrow, who became his third wife for a couple of years. In 2006, 2 months before the birth of her first child, a woman discovered her husband was having an affair. As time went on, it became clear that the relationship had been ongoing for some years, and the existence of several other affairs came to light. This woman stayed with her husband because she loved Jesus, and she loved her husband, and he said he loved her. And she wanted her child to have the stability of 2 parents. But despite forgiveness and attempts to restore trust, the relationship formally ended in divorce in 2010. In that same year, the actress Sandra Bullock was left heartbroken when several women came forward to say they'd had affairs with her husband, Jesse James. The marriage ended after 5 years in divorce, and shortly after, Jesse James was very resentful over the public backlash and reportedly said, "Yeah, I cheated on my wife, so what? I took accountability for it and I apologised." That's the end of the story. We live in a broken world, a world where the enemy is having a field day in the most intimate and sacred of our personal relationships. Walk down any magazine aisle of any supermarket and you'll be bombarded by headlines of infidelity and broken marriages. All too often, this brokenness becomes salacious gossip, and our culture seems to feed on it. In the middle of August this year, the Daily Mail reported rise of lockdown affairs. Dating websites for unfaithful spouses report an 18% spike in activity as cheaters face more time at home with their spouses. According to a survey of users of the website illicitencounters.com, don't go looking, 74% of male users told how they were seeking out an illicit fling because they were bored, living at home under the new rules, while 64% of female members reported that the increased time spent together during lockdown had exposed weaknesses in their marriage. A so-called relationship expert reports cheats are crawling up the walls with frustration while stuck at home with their spouses. The crisis is making people realise they need to escape their current relationships and start new ones when lockdown ends. Now, remember what I said at the outset. An adulterous heart is a restless one. It was that way in Moses' day, so too in Jesus' day, and it's definitely the same in our day. Some cultures try to be subtle about it, but not ours. This 7th commandment is blunt. It pulls no punches. You're left in no doubt about its meaning. Do not commit adultery. The thing is, hearts that are restless are often lusting after more than sex, and that's why we also need the 1st commandment, you shall have no other gods but me. This 1st commandment, which I spoke on before, is actually the foundation for the rest of the commandments, and it's why an adulterous heart is always a restless one. An adulterer is always trying to find some god to serve him or her. In the narrative surrounding the Ten Commandments, we see that when God first gave the Israelites the law, the people were already cheating on him and continued to be unfaithful even after God represented the law to them a second time. And Jesus made it very clear in his Sermon on the Mount that the outward act of adultery is also an inward rejection of God. To worship God means to love him exclusively. And in loving him exclusively, it means that you believe his love for you is better than anything else. The wreckage that often follows adultery in human relationships impacts family, friends, the church in some cases, even society at large, and often involves the huge effort of trying to keep things together. And God allows these consequences to be so devastating to make one thing painfully obvious. You shall have no other gods but me. Not your satisfaction, not your comfort, not your excitement, not your ambitions, not your preferences, not your dreams, not your sense of belonging. No, you shall have no other gods but me. This is why the commandment to not commit adultery is so devastating. While many people have avoided a physical affair, no human heart can love God with the exclusive preeminence this law demands. No heart, that is, except for the heart of Jesus. He loved God with all his heart and proved it with his obedience. He offered his innocent life on a cross in exchange for the failed lives of sinners, including adulterers. For those who are repenting of adultery, it's important for them to hear that God's love for them was never dependent on them keeping the law in the first place. Faith in Jesus is the exclusive reason God redeems sinners. If an adulterer could go back and be faithful to his or her spouse, all the ugly mess of breakup, rejection, and heartbreak could be avoided. But that person wouldn't be any more worthy of God's love. You see, God loves adulterers enough to forgive their adultery and to cleanse them from an adulterous heart. You're not on your own, for you were bought with a price, Paul reminded the Christians in Corinth. They were a restless people too. And this gracious promise is followed by a gracious command. So, glorify God in your body. A world of joy is contained in this promise-command combo, because a formerly adulterous heart is a formerly restless one.